This is the Earth Sky Woman podcast with your host, Tammy Brunk. Hello, all, and so delighted to be speaking to you right before the gorgeous Taurus full moon, the incredibly beautiful full moon that we're all hearing about and feeling because, of course, it takes place on Halloween here in the areas where we celebrate that holiday, All Hallows Eve, right on the eve of Samhain. It literally is lunar Samhain because, of course, traditional peoples often would have celebrated that cross quarter. It's the cross quarter between the fall equinox and the winter solstice. They would have celebrated that around the full moon, closest to this midway point. And so whether you think of it through that lens as Samhain, Halloween, All Hallows Eve, or Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead, however you think of this holiday, we all know, whether you're in the north or the southern hemispheres, that this is a time when the veils between the worlds are thinner. And so it's a time of great magic and possibility. So I want to say that to you, and I want to speak this to you, everyone listening in this moment, recognizing particularly here in the US that there is a lot of energy out there that is, that's pretty big energies that we're navigating. And I just want to put it out there that there is a much bigger, deeper current of magic and possibility that is far bigger and greater than what we see happening on the surface. So this full moon is conjunct Uranus. The full moon is exact at about 9:50 a.m. Central Time tomorrow morning, Saturday, the 31st of October. So it's going to be gorgeous and beautiful Friday night, tonight. It's going to be gorgeous and beautiful setting in the morning sky tomorrow, Saturday. It's going to be, depending on where you're located, of course, it's going to be closer to exact fullness or further. And it's, of course, going to be big and bright also Saturday night. So it is conjunct Uranus. So that's one of the big features of this full moon. And what I've been seeing and feeling so much with this activation is the energies of Taurus and the energies of Uranus combined, which have to do with the way I see this and feel this, it's like a still point. So it can be time for us to connect into the energies of Taurus that have to do with pleasure and full embodiment, what I see as embodied prayer when we're living from that energy of Taurus, which is about being fully in the present moment and savoring the gifts that come with being sensory beings, sensing beauty, sensing touch, sensing taste, sensing the intimacy experience of being in a body. So we have that experience of Taurus that's going to want to go as deeply as she or he can go into the present moment and experience that as pleasure. And then we also have that Uranian energy that can be experienced in many, many ways. Uranus can be seen as the great awakener. So Uranus can operate in a way that can feel surprising, that can feel shocking even. And the reason for that sometimes is because Uranus is here to shake things up so that we wake up, so that we have if we're stuck, if we're really not moving in with the flow of our true life purpose, personally or collectively or as a species or as a nation, if we need to be shaken up a little bit, well, then it can shake us up. If on the other hand, we've been really doing our work to stay awake and really connect to those energies in a conscious way, Uranus can be an incredibly exciting, powerful energy that creates spaciousness, that it's almost like it opens portals, it opens awareness, it can lift us into states of higher consciousness where we can see things and perceive of things from a higher, more detached, objective awareness. And boy, do we need a little bit of detached, objective awareness right now. I want to just also offer that it's one of those kind of interesting realities I've been sensing into right in front of your face, but it's a fun reality that we always have at this time of year when we're in the north, for example, Halloween, this moving into the dark of the year. It's a time for the kind of death, life, death cycles. At the same time that the sun is in the sign of Scorpio, the full moon is in the sign of Taurus. And so we also have the energies of Beltane, of this beautiful spring day that we have infused into the season. So we have this beautiful balancing of Taurus and Scorpio. Both of those energies have to do with life force energy, have to do with being fully alive and awake in the body in full feeling. So we are invited to do whatever we can to slow our pace and to be in the present moment. Now, I'm not saying everything's going to feel great. I know we're all in different places right now, but I want to offer into the field, into the stream, that this can be a really beautiful full moon, and it will be for many of us. For those of us who are having a hard time, who are struggling, just understand that there are many, many of us holding space for you, with you, doing everything we can to hold that frequency of coherence as you go through your difficult experiences. And of course, we were all switching places in 2020 from one moment to the next. So, but this is a potent full moon in Taurus, and it gives us an opportunity to refresh. And the words that kept coming through for me when I was doing this update for a group that I am astrologer for this month, Astro Hub, what kept coming through for me was to really come home to our center, to true center. So this is a homing energy, a coming home, a landing. For those of us who can find the capacities to do that, we're going to be anchors for everybody else. I want to also honor that there are many of us who have been feeling the big, intense energies at play in the world and astrologically, with Mars continuing its retrograde journey, continuing to really be close to an activation of a square to the Capricorn stellium of Jupiter and Saturn and Pluto. We now also added to the mix of this full moon in Taurus, we have Mercury retrograde squaring Saturn. So there's also that dynamic energy at play. And we also have Venus opposite Chiron. So when you add all those ingredients together into this really potent stew, what you have is the opportunity to, at the maybe what we can energize as the most whole and integrated experience of this is that we're fully in the body, we're enjoying time with ourselves or with others in ceremony, anchoring an experience of intimacy, of love, of connection, of real aliveness, letting whatever kinds of energies of grief or of sadness also need to infuse these moments to just move through us and to be with and hold space with that as well. That's the Venus opposite Chiron. And also if there are eruptions of tension or of any of these old energies that kind of keep coming back to visit us, of old thoughts or old stuck places or discomfort, that we're also holding a space of almost like greeting them with a celebratory air, saying, okay, this is the season for composting. And so, bring it on, like bring on whatever those, and I'm speaking more of the internal states, let us, those of us who are here to really do a lot of the emotional transmutation, let us do that as it's our time to do that in a way that can clear more space, let it come about as easily and quickly as possible. I will just say that from the last time that I spoke with all of you, boy, like everyone, I've just had some days where it's felt impossible, where I felt like just backed against a wall. And as many of you know, my current crucible has been this path of intimacy, and it's often been so for me, but that the question that I've been living into is it even possible for me to be fully intimate with myself and intimate with a beloved, living together, really close, really connected, and also intimate with myself. Now, for anyone who's not an empath, this is probably going to sound kind of weird or silly, but the reality is, and it's not just about being an empath, it's about a lot of things. But for me, this has just been some of my crucible where I'm doing a lot of deep growth and healing. And so over the last couple of weeks, once again, there's so much that came up internally for me. And what I've noticed is that when I have these waves of intensity, of self-doubt, of pain, of questioning everything, that's kind of what I do with my Gemini mind, my Gemini moon. That if I can be with that, and I have a lot of tools that I can use, as many of us do, but I still get stuck. Some of my tools can include journaling. I've been doing a lot of journaling. I've been doing a lot of kind of processing and bringing some clarity to the situation, really asking, well, what do you really want? What's possible, being able to speak ever more truthfully about where I'm at. And even if sometimes I can't speak directly to my partner in the moment because I know there's so much triggering that will happen, to speak to divine. You know, sometimes I go into prayer and say, look, like this is too big for me. Whatever this is that is moving through me, it's so uncomfortable. It's so difficult. It feels so overwhelming. I can't take care of it by myself. I need your help. Asking for help is good in my experience, if that's something you can do. The other reality I experienced yesterday was that when I was once again, I had another realization, and those of you who've been listening to me know that this is a realization that I've been having in different octaves. And I know many of you listening are in the same place. I've had kind of a lifelong tendency to feel like I needed to carry the world on my shoulders. This is a Saturnian thing. I have Saturn on my moon. I've got tons of Capricorn in the 10th house. So there's just part of me that feels like I need to shoulder everything. And I'll have other people tell me that I'm doing plenty, that I seem to be really active and doing a lot, and it doesn't matter. I just feel like I'm never doing enough. I always kind of question that I'm kind of screwing it all up. You know, I think sometimes when we follow astrology, we use that to beat ourselves up more. So, you know, I'm missing this thing or I'm getting it wrong. So I go into those spirals. You know, there's this deadly urgency to, you have to get your shit together now. If you don't, you're going to fall off a cliff. It's like this apocalyptic, urgent kind of grasping. You could say that's the ego, of course. There are a lot of ways to categorize it. Whatever it is, though, I got a beautiful little reading, an energy reading yesterday from a friend, and she just said, you know, you're just carrying all this stuff on your shoulders. And I was just like, God, still, like, this is what it is. And I finally yesterday, I just said, I'm done. And I just said to divine, I said to spirit, I said, I here for release. And I said it aloud. I declared it. I hereby release any belief that I am here to suffer, to be oriented primarily around self-sacrifice, that it's all up to me, that I'm here carrying all these heavy energies. I am offering that up to you now. This is the old pattern. It no longer serves. This is not what I'm here for. Anything that I'm carrying for others, I hereby release now. And you know, if you ever feel really stuck, when you get to that place where you're ready and you get really, you know, the good thing about this year, about 2020, is that a lot of us have become very intimately familiar with our core issues. This is my core issue. I think that it's this heavy, heavy seriousness. And once we become that intimately familiar with our core issues, it's time. And we don't even necessarily need to take another class. We can, and it can be great, but we can gather ourselves and we can claim and we can declare to the universe what our new agreement is. And there may be nothing more powerful, I feel, than that. And you've got to be ready to do it. But that's really what it takes, is for us to stand in the truth and the reality of what we're actually here to do, and what we are no longer willing to hold and carry that does not belong to us. So I would encourage you, when you feel stuck, to try it. It might feel a little awkward, but let me tell you, the changes you will end up feeling afterward are big. Now, the other piece that I think many of us have been navigating is around all of that, is exhaustion, is feeling really emotionally tired. And many of us who are really tuned into the collective have been doing a lot of transmuting for the collective emotional energies. And so it can feel incredibly overwhelming, the profound grief around what's happening with climate change, with continued, with what's happening, what we see happening around us in the sphere of politics, and so many, with COVID, with death counts, everything that we are navigating globally, collectively, and personal experiences of economic hardship or those we care about. You know, I don't need to tell you anymore. We all know and feel it. And so with all of that, we're all doing a tremendous amount of work collectively and personally. So it can be really important, even if, and maybe especially if you have big dreams and goals that you're still working toward, to take big, deep breaths and to take big, deep breaks when you need to. And that's what happened for me. You know, I've been facilitating this Unleashed group, and they're phenomenal. These women are incredibly wise, gifted, loving alchemists, each doing their own work. And they've been teaching me a tremendous amount. And so when I, on Tuesday, had a big event for Astro Hub, and then I was doing work for, I was facilitating for our Unleashed group, I was realizing I was really under the weather. I was feeling really bad, and it was a little concerning because I felt nauseous all day. I had a runny nose. I was getting a headache. I just felt completely drained, you know, all these weird symptoms. And so I was getting a bit concerned. So at the end of that day, though, after listening to all my beautiful Unleashed people, and I'll just say in that class, we're all intending and working together to unleash something, to create something that we act on by November 13th. And so, you know, we've been going back and forth between this more yang, action-oriented energy to resting, going into the yin, feminine phase of replenishing our stores, and just coming to recognize the dynamic interplay between those energies. And so after our Unleashed class, I was really inspired by listening to some of these wonderful women to recognize, girl, you need to stop, because I was exhausted and a little concerned. And so what I did was I went to bed early, and I stayed in bed until 11 in the morning the next day. I just let myself lounge. I let myself, and the next day I just took off. I was just quiet. I don't do that very often, not nearly enough. And it felt so good. And then even yesterday, I let myself in the morning, just kind of when I felt really kind of crazy again, and I had all these old demons coming up again, I just really let myself lie there and just be with the sensations, be with the emotions, and give myself more space. Because when I feel that exhaustion in my womb, it really is time to stop, to take a bath, to just lie down. And what I also do is I just go very deeply within. For some reason, I need to be on my back. Some of you may be different, but I'm laying down on my back, my hands on my belly, sometimes on my heart. And I just intend to go really deep into my inner resource and just take time to be really still. That's what works for me. So those are two ways to come back home to ourselves, I feel, is that deep rest, deep homecoming. And then the other is to, when we come more into a place of just feeling a little crazy and feeling like we're going to make a decision that we might regret later because of all of the intensity of feeling inside of us, it's to get really clear on what we've been learning in 2020, what keeps coming up as a core wound, and to really declare, even if it's just in the moment, that that's something you're not willing to continue to stay stuck in. And those two energies are big. And when I talk about those energies, those are really the primal masculine and the primal feminine energies. And this fall, we have been navigating those two energies in a really big, beautiful way. And I'll say that because Venus has been activated at the throat chakra, the heart chakra, and then now November 12th, she will be activating the solar plexus chakra. So she's really doing a lot of deep work around the power centers of the feminine. And also we've had the sun we have had Venus and we've had Mercury, all moving through the body of the Virgin constellation. And we have had the new moon in Libra, and with Spica, the brightest star in the Virgin constellation, we have Mercury retrograde stationing direct on the 3rd of November, also within a couple of degrees of Spica. And then we also have Venus meeting the moon, once again, November 12th, activating the solar plexus chakra gate. That also is happening within a few degrees of Spica. So Spica is the brightest star in the Virgin constellation. It represents the grain of wheat or of corn in her hands. And the Virgin priestess is, for many cultures, does carry that kind of feminine presence. For many, it's that virgin or that priestess energy. And when I say virgin, I mean the sovereign feminine. And she's been carrying us. And when I see and feel Spica, which is really, if you look up the meaning of fixed stars in ancient Western and Eastern astrology, there are very few stars that you will see are seen as being very fortunate and very positive in almost any position. Spica is one of those stars. She's really kind of a stand-in for Venus. If you don't see Venus in the sky, she is the sacred sovereign feminine. And so with Mars being such a strong and potent energy since the fall, since it stationed retrograde on the 9th and has been very close to the Earth, you've seen it brighter than it will be until 2035, opposing the sun on October 12th and continuing to be retrograde, continuing to be fairly close to the sun, to the Earth, and squaring, very much activating the Capricorn stellium. So Mars has been the masculine, Mars and Aries energy, and then you've got this Venus energy, and you've also got the Virgin constellation activated. Then you've got Venus with the heart chakra activated, and you have everything moving through Libra, which is also about right relationship between masculine and feminine. And then you have now Venus and Mars in an opposition on the 9th. We have so much work that we're doing under the surface that has to do with the places where we are coming into right relationship between masculine and feminine energies between us, within us. And this is a very, very powerful, fertile place to be. So, so when we are learning to do a dance between and to listen deeply to when it is that we go deep within, we drop into that Scorpio, we drop into that Taurus energy of the feminine and just really listening deep and being deeply present to the moment. And then when we move, we go from that to more of that Mars and Aries energy, or even some of the Capricornian energies that are a bit more masculine. I will say that I think it's an overlay. I do actually think that Capricorn as an earth sign has more of that grandmother or grandfather resonance to it. However, it can feel more like that commanding energy than the yin energy. So it's more about our authority and claiming our authority when Capricorn is healthy. So, and then you've got Libra and you've got the heart chakra activation, which is all about how we bring these energies into balance, how it is the feminine masculine can come back into partnership with each other. And more and more, I'm not alone in this, but I think the issue is at this stage, it's not just what we would refer to as patriarchy. It also has to do with the reality that most of us don't even know what authentic, healthy, masculine energy looks and feels like. And we don't really know what healthy, authentic feminine energy looks like. And of course, they're evolving, but there's an essence to those things. So we're remembering the core essence, the inflowing, vibrant, healthy, whole, healed, vital energy of the masculine and the feminine coming into a sacred dance and remembering each other and knitting themselves back into this connected relationship again. And that is the dynamic that fuels our entire beautiful reality here on earth. And so that's what we're healing right now within ourselves and in the world around us. So, these feel like the most important energies to speak into. Oh, wait, no, not totally. Um, Actually, the next couple of weeks, we're still working with these energies that I'm speaking into, but we also have we have all of that leading up to November 12th and 13th. Those are some big days. This is what my entire Unleashed class is kind of based on, is that we have Jupiter and Pluto conjunct on the 12th. So just understand Jupiter, doesn't move terribly fast. So we have that energy kind of building even now because Saturn is now distancing from Pluto. So now it's really about Jupiter and Pluto together in Capricorn. And so November 12th, Jupiter meets Pluto for the third time in 2020. And this is a big energy. So between that Scorpio and Taurus energy that we're working with, and then because, Sun's still in Scorpio and we've got the Taurus full moon, between that, the energies of Samhain, the cross quarter, and also this big Jupiter, Pluto, and Capricorn energy, what we have is this portal where what we want to magnify and magnetize in terms of the kind of reality we want to live in, how we want to feel day to day, how we want our daily lives to look and feel, what we want this new cultural paradigm to look and feel like. We have been getting glimpses of that. We have been beginning to experience, well, what do I want my personal primary relationships that have endured so much growth and so much friction. We've been working through so much in this year. We have not had as easy of a time of just, distancing ourselves and distracting ourselves from the core issues. So what do I want my relationship with myself to look and feel like? What does true intimacy feel like? What do I want my relationship with my beloved to look and feel like? What do I want my relationship with my children or my nieces and nephews? Who are my people? And I may be in a close relationship with them now, or I might be becoming so intimately familiar with who I am that I am sensing more and more what kinds of relationships I want. So we're refining what we really deeply desire in our relationship realms and how we want our connection to the earth to feel, what ways we want to be in relationship with our work in the world, how we want to structure our day or flow with our day, how do we work with synchronicity, how do we live more magical lives? These are a lot of the questions. How do we, what are some, it's like these little sparks, in the midst of so much intensity and doing so much heavy lifting emotionally, we're getting these little glimpses of little bright lights coming up like, oh, this is what I want my life to feel like, look like. And so with the Taurus Scorpio energies, which are really magnetic, that help us manifest really powerfully, and with the energies of Jupiter and Pluto, which also kind of spiritualize, in a sense, Pluto, which is all about purification and transformation, but also about, when you bring those two energies together in Capricorn, you can profoundly transform culture. And my feeling and my sense is very powerfully too, that is a strong and potent magnetic energy, that if we are lined up and if we're saying, this is what I want my internal culture to look and feel like and my external culture to look and feel like, then we are going to work magic. And add to that, Mars in Aries is stationing direct on the 13th. So there's all this energy that's been pulled back, all this life force energy. And so the 13th, all this energy begins rushing forward. And of course, Mercury's already direct too. So we've got all these planets moving direct now. And so I would continue to invite you all to consider, what is an action? What is something that you want to set in motion around the 13th or the 14th? I would say the 14th, actually, 13th, 14th. What is a dream? What is a desire? Something you want to bring into the world, ideally, because this is Capricorn, Aries we're talking about. And it might be, actually, it might have to do with your personal relationship. But what are some actions, or what's an action you can take on the 13th, 14th that can create momentum around creating this reality you want to live in your personal life and in the world around you over the next 3 years, to say even 12 years, if you can really hold a vision that big. Let me tell you, I've had a really big vision, and it's coming clear that it's incredibly possible. And the pieces are starting to come together. And I think there are others, you know, that aren't just like me. I mean, others of you out there too who are seeing the same thing, where you understand that your life, as strange as your life patterns have been over the last few years, you're starting to see the places where it's all kind of fitting together like puzzle pieces, and how it's fitting into our larger visions. So whether it's a small action or a large action doesn't really matter. I would say 13th and 14th is just to take inspired action in some way that comes from a place of wellness, of wholeness, of knowing you are deeply loved, of that frequency that we actually want to live in, that is going to create that difference in the world around us. And of course, this isn't something that I'm saying to you to set up some kind of a framework of, oh my gosh, if I don't have my shit together, excuse my language, you know, by the 13th, 14th, then it's a bad thing. It's not really about that. I would say the next 2 weeks, it's really to create more spaciousness around wherever you are, and more love around wherever you are, and let emerge naturally what your deepest desires are. What are your deepest desires moment to moment in terms of how you want your life experience to be, and continue focusing your attention on where that's already showing up. And miracles are absolutely possible right now. Begin to focus your practice on what if instead of what is or what was. Focus on what if instead of what is or what was, except that you also want to be cultivating this field of radical gratitude. And when I say radical gratitude, I want to preface that by saying part of that practice is to say, God damn it, this really fucking sucks. Oh man, I don't usually use that kind of language, so I'm sorry. You're not, little kids aren't listening. I apologize, but there it is. It's been that kind of year in 2020. So even if what you've been experiencing is really tough and you're not ready to feel gratitude for it, great. But to be continually moving back into a place of, okay, what is it in my life that I really love? What do I feel good about? Okay, right now I don't feel anything good. I'm going to give myself some breaths, or I'm going to do whatever it takes to kind of to be with myself in that wherever I am, and know that the nature of life now is that it changes. But to cultivate kind of a field of gratitude around, or to be open to letting, actually, let me just say it like that. Be open to allowing gratitude to infuse your life, and talk a lot to deity, to divine. Talk to yourself, to your body. This is something I've been just having so much fun with. Just talk to the world around you. And of course, you can't do that if there are people around you who don't get what you're doing. But when you're by yourself, maybe mutter under your breath. Talk to yourself and tell yourself how much you love you. Talk to the trees and tell them how much you love them. Talk to deity and say, you know what, this is really hard and I don't know how to get through this and I need your help. This is actually a really powerful practice. It's part of what we're doing to reconnect ourselves to the fabric of creation. So, and maybe through song, maybe through chanting, maybe through just whispering, it doesn't matter. But the reality is that your voice, your presence, your conversation with life is important right now. You are needed in your engagement. And so, and that might sometimes start with being incredibly engaged with just wherever you're at. But let me just say, as I close, that I'm very aware of where we're at in the 3D reality of politics and all of what is surrounding me. I'm here in the heartland of the US, of all places. And I just want to say, to me, it feels like so many of us are doing so much potent and powerful work around healing collective trauma, around our shadow work, around grief, around making changes when it's needed, around navigating the masculine and feminine energies inside of us and outside of us, around learning how to be honest and truthful about how we feel, even when it's not pretty, about looking in the face of what our agreements have been that we are no longer willing to be possessed by or oppressed by, and beginning with ourselves when it comes to justice and expanding that outward into the world around us. So my feeling, I have a very good feeling today. about the work we've been doing. And of course, it comes in waves, you know, so maybe I'll have a dark day in 2 days, but we're learning to navigate those waves. And I'll just say, you know, who is going to say that the elections are going to end on the 3rd? I mean, that would be very difficult to imagine. But let's hold that frequency as often as we can. Let's hold that possibility of what is the best case scenario. And I will say what I've said from the beginning of this podcast, which is that I deeply believe that I'm going to speak into what's happening in the US right now. And as I say this, I just send so much love to everyone all across the globe, knowing we're all going through our own journey. And there's so much that so many of us are navigating, and we're one human family. And just speaking for the US and speaking for Turtle Island and for the heartland of where I find myself, I feel like we really are ground zero. And I feel hopeful. I believe that prophecy has said that we are going to be the crucible where profound and radical healing shifts are happening. Because, like it or not, the US still has an incredible influence around the globe. And what the healing that we do, the core healing we are doing personally with our ancestral lines, with our beloveds, with the earth, with our way of connecting to reality, is going to have massive and profound ripple effects. So my feeling is that, of course, what we're learning here in the US is similar to what the human species is learning, that we are not, this is going to sound paradoxical, we are not above anything. We are not separate from, we are part of, we are connected with, and that is a good thing. That is a beautiful thing. Isolation and separation for the US and for the human species has been devastatingly difficult, painful, and hard. And it's time for us to return to what it means to be a human being and what it means to be part of a collective species that is doing some deep healing work, and what it means to be a part of this beautiful creation on earth, this incredibly precious experience of being in a physical body on this gorgeous earth at this time of such profound awakening. So I'm sending all of you so much love. And if you're feeling low right now, then I just extra doses of just compassion and love, because boy, you know, we've all been there. And may you experience whatever that medicine is that's needed for you to come home deeply to yourself. And wishing you all a beautiful full moon. And this is Tammy with Earth Sky Woman, and I'll talk to you soon.